Welcome back, ladies and gents, and I'm here with old friend 8-Bit Thoughts, and we're going to talk about the question of all questions when it comes to dating. Do nice guys finish last? How are you, 8-Bit?
Yeah, I'm really good. Still recovering from Christmas, but apart from that, yeah, on top of the world. How about you?
Yeah, good. I didn't. I kept it pretty low on Christmas. Didn't do too much damage. Not a drinker these days, so not much to get over. To be honest, got a bit sunburnt though. Got a bit of sun.
It was pretty miserable up here in Brisbane on Christmas Day. Boxing Day was bloody perfect, but yeah, it was just hazy as.
Yeah, Christmas Day was a shocker, but yeah, I got down the beach on Boxing Day. Good stuff. Now, just in case, I've picked up a few subscribers since we last had a chat. What did we talk about?
I think it was a month ago.
Yeah.
The modern state of dating.
Modern state of dating.
Or something like that.
I will link that one into this video so if people haven't seen that. But do you want to tell people what you do again, just for those who don't know who you are?
Yep, so I'm a dating coach, not a pickup artist. So I teach guys confidence, self-esteem, and how that relates to dating and meeting women. Mm-hmm. And I've sort of got clients speckled around Australia, and I spend a bit of time in Singapore as well. So I'm all over the shop.
All right. So the topic of the day, do nice guys finish last? Now, in the world of dating, I'm going to science this up a bit, and we're going to go to an article I think is a fairly well-known one. It's by a couple of people did in 2003. It's from Psychology Today. And I think it's important if we define what nice guy means. Now, I'm going to read this out to you. When a woman says he's nice, her ruling may actually be a polite rejection, a recognition of some good qualities, but an overall evaluation of no, not for me. The trouble may be in how we use the term nice. It's generally defined as a constellation of traits that prioritize kindness, conscientiousness, warmth, and respect. But when it comes to romantic interest, nice can be shorthand antonym for bold, strong, or sexy, instead meaning needy, weak, predictable, boring, inexperienced, and unattractive. So
that's pretty spot on.
Give us your professional opinion on that.
That's 100% accurate. I mean, your classic nice guys are the sort of guys that go out of their way to please a chick and just effectively let them walk all over them. They don't really have very strong boundaries. They buy them flowers, buy them gifts, all that sort of shit, sort of manipulate them into liking them. And they're often very dishonest about their intentions as well. Like you'll find with nice guys, he'll, have a thing for a chick, but he'll never actually have the balls to do anything about it because he's constantly scared of rejection.
Yeah, and he, so that's interesting because I think that article went on to say exactly that about nice guys aren't necessarily nice in the sense that they're not honest about their intentions, and they'll often try and wangle their way in there by being by sort of getting in the friend zone and think they're going to weasel their way in that way. But that's not really a successful strategy, is it?
No, I don't think I've ever really seen anyone pull it off successfully. I mean, I've seen guys get out of the friend zone and into relationships, but you're pushing serious shit uphill in that sort of situation.
Yeah. I've never understood that because to me it seems like an enormous investment of time for, probably, in all honesty, not a very big chance of payoff, is it?
Yeah, and I mean it just puts them on such a high pedestal that, like, when there's that difference in perceived value, it's very, very hard to bring that back.
Yeah.
So, like, my advice to anyone who's in the friend zone who wants to get out is don't. Just fucking go for other chicks.
Yeah, exactly. I guess, some guys just get fixated on that girl. But there's the deeper question of going back to something you said, which was that basically a lot of these types of guys are for want of a better expression, doormats, in the sense that, like you said, they don't really have boundaries. They're pretty much amenable to anything. They're just very malleable. So what they'll end up doing, and I know this through experience being younger, is that they'll go along with things that they're really not happy with, but they just go along to get along. They're happy they've got a girlfriend, they're getting laid, and so the boundaries, they don't really have any, and therefore they get into habits and situations that in the short term they don't really give a shit about, but in the long term they'll come back to bite you on the ass.
Yeah, and those relationships end up being quite toxic because you'll have a chick who's, really unsatisfied by him not being a man. And, when she starts turning into his mother, he's not attracted to her anymore, and it all ends up in divorce.
Yeah, well, let's hope it doesn't get that far. Yeah, well, I guess that's one of those, and this gets to the sort of this nice guys finish last. It's kind of a stereotype. It's something that's just sort of repeated, but is it really true? Now, there's a lot of studies out there that suggest that actually when you present women with choices, so there's been studies done where you present women with a choice of 3 online dating profiles, and there's basically, I think in one particular study they called the guy Todd, and it was nice Todd, jerk Todd, and neutral Todd, and so you can figure out what they are. And I think one of the traits of nice Todd was that he was like, he volunteered for non-profit organization, he did that kind of thing, whereas jerky Todd, he didn't do anything of that. He was just more concerned with himself. And neutral Todd just didn't really, he was vapid and had no opinions on anything. He's just non-committal, which is just that's game over right there. And what they found was that the women overwhelmingly went for nice Todd. And so this was supposed to say that, well, actually women do go for nice guys. When it came to short-term relationships, if they were just interested in a hookup, they went for jerky Todd just as much, if not more, than nice Todd. But here's the problem, I'm getting to the, I'm taking my time, but I'm getting to it, is that the problem with that kind of experiment is that it's all based on women's perceptions and not how they actually behave. So they're given circumstances, on a sheet of paper, and they sit there and they rationally go through their checklist of things they like to tick off. But the paradox is that when you look at online, and this is speed dating in particular, you go to speed dating events, what happens is when you get people together and you ask them before, what are the things you're looking for? And then you examine the people that they chose to, if you haven't done speed dating, you nominate, a bunch of people on your sheet, and if the men,
and if they match up,
you get a date.
Yeah,
I've done it a few times. So apparently, what they write down before the dating about the things that they're looking for and the people they actually pick, completely different. It just goes out the window, because I think biology and emotions just overrun everything.
Well, I'm under the personal belief, and I'm sorry to any female listeners out there, but a lot of the time chicks don't even know what they want. I mean, they know what they want on paper, but when it comes down to biology, it's often very different. And to sort of go back to the question, nice guys do finish last, but bad boys don't come first. Right? If you get qualities, the positive qualities from both of them, so, doing volunteer work and all that sort of stuff, and just being a polite person, but then you also take, the confidence of the cocky guy, his willingness to get rejected, he's more vulnerable. And when you mash those together, you get sort of the perfect guy. And they're the guys who finish first.
Well, there's a term for that. I just learned it today when I was doing a bit of research for this. Was a narsehole. Have you heard this? A narsehole. He's the nice arsehole. A narsehole.
Oh, right.
So I think that's what you're talking about. It's a combination of the the nice guy traits, but with the assertiveness, the confidence. Confidence is something that keeps coming up in all the literature that women really like.
Confidence is pretty much the number one most attractive quality in a guy.
Yep.
Like hands down, pretty much any culture you go to, that will be the number one thing.
Yeah. And so they said they also mentioned that if what was it, that if you had a situation in which there was a selection between a nice guy and an asshole, confidence can be. I think confidence was most often the deciding factor. So on everything else, the asshole and the jerk and the nice guy were comparable. Like, they both had as many positives and negatives. But if the nice guy has confidence, he'll win it over the asshole. Yeah. But if the asshole has confidence and the nice guy doesn't, then it's game over, nice guy.
Yeah, exactly. I also find nice guys are just very agreeable. No matter what the topic is, they tend to just agree with whatever the chick says, and it just dries vaginas up.
Yeah, is it? Because here's this, and this is, I haven't read this. This is just a personal theory. Is that women, and it varies, of course, but a lot of women like drama and conflict in a relationship.
Yes.
And I never really understood. I was with a really chilled out woman for sort of about 6 years, and then when that broke up and I went out dating again, and she was actually really just chilled out, didn't get upset ever, hardly ever. And I went out and started dating again, and girls were just flipping out over what I considered trivial things, and I didn't understand. And I came around to the idea that they some of them really need this conflict. This, do you really like me or not? Are you willing to fight for me, with me? Are you willing to, they want to see that you'll apologize to them or come to them, and meet them halfway. Sort of basic shit tests a lot of the time.
Yeah. I think that I was actually talking to another coach that used to work for me about something similar last night. And I kind of, and this is only my opinion, I don't have any evidence to back this up, but I see that need for drama and all that sort of stuff to be kind of a side effect of women being more emotional. Like if you look at evolution, women were the nurturing ones. They had to protect or look after the children and all that sort of stuff. So having a high amount of empathy and all that sort of stuff was very important. Yeah. And I think as a side effect of that, they want those emotions rolling through them all the time. So, they start petty fights in the workplace and shit test guys. I really do see it as a side effect, but again, can't prove it.
So I guess maybe if I could get you to offer some advice to the guy out there, probably the younger guy. Now, most of my listeners are actually under the age of 34, so perhaps speaking to that audience. But, it depends where you are in life. Younger guys who aren't that experienced and who don't really, as you say, they're not clear about their boundaries, because most of their focus, and I was a victim of this when I was, not a victim, but this is what I did when I was younger. You focus on getting the girl and pleasing her, but if you haven't figured out where your own boundaries are, you're bound to run into trouble, especially if you meet a girl that's even slightly manipulative.
Yeah. Well, my advice to them would be start by working on yourself. Don't even worry about the girls, at least for the time being. Focus on your goals, your lifestyle, your career. And the more goals that you start achieving, the more confidence you will build. And once you've got confidence, then it's much easier to have strong boundaries. Pardon me.
Yep.
And, really put yourself out there and don't be afraid to be rejected. I mean, I've been rejected fucking thousands of times in the, 7.5 years I've been doing this.
Yeah.
It's really not that scary. I mean, at the end of the day, who gives a fuck? There's 3.5 billion women on the planet. There's plenty to choose from.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. That's funny. I actually led a girl through a mathematical experiment once. She was young girl, and she was of the opinion that there was, she believed in the one, like there's the one
God.
out there. And I led her through a mathematical. I said, look, if you, she was 25 at the time, and I said, look, if you dated a guy every day, a different guy every single day, just a blind date every single day for 20 years, from 18 years of age to 38, how many guys would you actually date? And it's something like, over 7,000. 7,000 guys. And I said, do you know how many eligible guys in your age range there are out there? I said, you will meet some tiny fraction of 1% of the guys that are actually in your eligible age bracket in your life. And you think there's the one? There's absolutely no chance of you meeting the one, even if he is out there. My opinion is there's the many. You just have to be lucky enough to meet one of them.
Yeah. Tim Minchin does a fucking hilarious song on this topic. If I didn't have you, I'd probably have someone else.
Yeah.
Like, she might not be as smart, but better at sport. And everyone's different. So there's no one.
No, absolutely.
I think Hollywood is to blame for that.
Yeah, the old rom-coms. Yeah, I'm sure I probably believed that when I was pretty young at some point. But once you start getting laid a few times, it's like you just don't care anymore. Who cares?
Yeah, exactly.
There is many. I used to think, if I break up on Friday night, I just go out Saturday night. What's the difference? Not much.
Yeah, it means you can spend more time with the boys.
Yeah, but there is that thing about I don't know, given your age, but I suspect, given the sort of climate around women, that men are more hesitant than ever. Not men my age. I don't think they would have changed a hell of a lot. But young men, probably more hesitant than ever to approach a girl.
Yeah, definitely.
So how do you get over the rejection? I mean, short of becoming a vacuum salesman and going door to door and getting used to rejection, how do you psych yourself up for that?
Well, there are certain cases where someone has such an amount of anxiety that they'll actually internalize rejection. Mm-hmm. I had that with a client about, 3 or 4 years ago, and I actually made him worse. I didn't realize what was going on at the time, but he had some much deeper psychological stuff to deal with before any of my coaching was going to be effective. But in most cases, it's really about just going in there and just giving it a go. I mean, my approach is, if you say something to her, then, you've already won. It doesn't matter what happens after that. Like, there's in the industry, we call it approach anxiety.
Yeah.
If you're approaching someone at a bar or a club, and it never really completely goes away. So say I'm doing a day game coaching session where we're approaching girls on the street, I still get butterflies in my stomach.
Right.
But I realize once I've done it, it's all going to be fine. I'll feel like a fucking hero for having done it in the first place. And practice does make perfect. I mean, once you've done it, 10, 20 times, it's just kind of water off a duck's back. So just be positive about it and don't put too much pressure on yourself. I think most guys psych themselves out thinking about whether they should or should not do it.
Yeah.
And, don't think about it. Just do it.
Yeah.
Because if you spend 5 minutes thinking about how scary the rejection is going to be, you're going to be shitting yourself by the end of it.
Yeah. I think when I was younger, I tended to sort of think like you had to make a perfect approach because, this is the girl. This is the girl that you saw across the room. And you're unable to tell yourself, well, you said that last week at a different bar. But, and
there's no such thing as a perfect approach.
Yeah, and you fixate on this, I don't want to blow it. But could it be as simple as just, if you're out, can it just as simple as a bit of Dutch courage and having a couple of drinks? If that's what works for you to loosen the tongue, then that's what you got to do.
I mean, I personally don't like my clients to rely on that.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine any of my clients are listening to this. So, if that's going to help you, then go out, have a couple. Just don't get shit-faced because what happens is guys end up going out, getting way too drunk, and then just being a slobbery mess and looking like a fucking idiot.
Yeah, no one likes that. Unless
No.
she's as shit-faced as you. But these days, that never works out well for the guy because she can always retroactively withdraw consent.
Yeah, it's getting scary, isn't it? I mean, there's been times where I've woken up next to someone and didn't even know who she was. Like, zero recollection of even meeting her.
Yep.
And in a situation like that, you know, if she turned around and said something, I have zero memory of anything. So there'd sort of be no evidence for me to back it up.
Yeah. So let's there are going to be guys out there, regardless of what good advice you can give them, and tell someone to be confident is one thing, but to actually be confident is another. There are guys, and you know them, you went to school with them, you probably know some right now. They are not the alpha. They're not even the beta. They're quiet. They sort of keep to themselves. They're not necessarily losers. They're just not the confident, outgoing type. So is there any hope for them, or what can they do?
There's hope for everyone as long as they're willing to put in the work it takes. Me, when I was 18, 19, I was seriously shit with women. You know, embarrassingly bad. I was that nice guy. And, you know, it did take a lot of time to build confidence. It's not a light switch where you just say, oh, okay, today I'm going to be confident. You really need to push your comfort zone, start achieving things, you know, go do public speaking courses to help, you know, build that confidence, and, you know, go rock climbing, anything.
Yeah.
But you have to be taking action. You're not going to become a confident person just by sitting at home playing computer games.
No.
And what's important to understand is that if you're a shy or type of person, you don't need to be outgoing to do well. One of the coaches that used to work for me, I nearly doxed him. He's very, very quiet guy, but very confident.
Right.
So he didn't say things very often. He'd be quite reserved, but whenever he did open his mouth, everyone would listen because he said stuff with power.
Right.
So you don't need to be outgoing. You don't need to be that alpha male. You just need to be the best version of yourself.
And what? And what about? Oh, this is another thing I read about was I think it sort of goes hand in hand with confidence, but is in a group, the trait of social dominance was brought up, and again, you don't have to be socially dominant if you're like the friend that you just described, that you come across as confident in yourself. You don't have to be the showy one of the group. You don't have to be the one that's the life of the party necessarily if you have the confidence. But social dominance was another attractive trait. Women are attracted to the guy who's, you know, sometimes he's just making a dick of himself, or he's just the center of attention. He's the funny guy.
Yeah, I've got a mate like that. He's an absolute clown. He's always the center of attention. Really, really outgoing guy. Does not give a single fuck what anyone else thinks. And he gets laid. Like, I don't think I've ever met anyone who gets laid as much as he does. We hate him for it. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. So, yeah.
But, you know, there's still plenty of other guys in our group who aren't the center of attention who still clean up. But there's another issue with social value. Is it's perceived.
Yeah.
So let's say you're the alpha male of your group. If you go into a group of alpha males, you're no longer the alpha male.
Yeah.
So it's all perceived value.
Yep.
So I guess you could, if you're a shy guy, just hang around guys that are even shyer than you.
Yeah.
Sends you to the top by default.
I'm trying to think of what about getting back to this idea that women say they want X, but they actually go for Y. Now, how do you give tips on how to read what a woman's saying versus what she actually means? Do you?
I tend to.
I mean, sorry.
I tend to.
Do you tell?
Sorry.
I was just trying to clarify. Like, do you tell guys, look, they'll say this, but they mean this, or don't take everything they say literally. Don't. And it's not. It's not that they're being deliberately dishonest. It's just that their actual biology or emotions are going to betray what they're saying.
Yeah, so judge them by their actions, not their words. There's, as an example, quite recently, I got this chick's number at a restaurant, and she said she was really keen to go out on a date, but she was quite flaky with the text messages.
Right.
And then when I said, yep, okay, cool, when are you free? She never ended up responding. So even though she was saying, yes, she was keen, she didn't want to reject me.
Right.
And, she didn't want to have that confrontation. Or in other situations, you might see a girl who likes a guy in the group, will say she doesn't, but follows him around like a puppy. Right. So, yeah, ignore people's words effectively.
Yeah,
actions speak far louder.
I guess that's something, if anyone ever goes to Japan, women will... Saying no to anybody in Japan in any circumstance is sort of a no-no. They're really...
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's annoying because you're just like, I don't care if you say no. Just if you say no, then we can move on. We don't have to waste our fucking time, because maybe in Japanese, tabun is effectively no. But if you don't know that, you think they're saying maybe. You think you're in there with a chance, but maybe actually means no in Japanese.
And you can have the opposite happen as well. There was a girl probably a couple months ago who I said, oh, do you want to come home with me tonight? And she said, no, I've heard about your reputation. And I was like, oh, okay, it was worth a crack. Anyway, 20 minutes later, she's sitting on my lap, and I said, all right, let's just get out of here. And then, she followed me up, jumped in a cab with me, and we went home. I was like, what the fuck happened? But, yeah, they don't like confrontation, really.
Yeah. But maybe, it's an ego trip for her to be asked, because if you truly do have some type of reputation as being a little bit of a ladies' man, then what I've found is that even though women say they don't like that, they're actually very attracted to that guy, because this says that the guy has high sexual marketplace value. And why
it's social proof.
Yeah, it's the old 80-20 rule. When we go back to the this supposedly new problem about girls sending nude photos of themselves to boys, and then the boys sharing them around their mates, and the girls get all shamed. And of course, it's the horrible boys' fault. Of course, women have absolutely no agency. Why are you sending naked pictures of yourself to start with? Oh, because I'm pressured into it, all this kind of crap. But what turns out is that the girls are sending the pictures to the same select group of guys. And those are the guys, and the reason it's self-reinforcing, because those guys get the photos. Well, they keep getting more of the photos. And the guys that, as some other research shows, we may have brought this up before, guys that don't get laid a lot, or even if you're, God forbid, a virgin, is a real big turn-off. Yet women will say that they want the exact opposite. They don't want the player, but biologically they're drawn to the player, and that's why 20% of the guys get all the nude photos and 80% get nothing. Yeah,
and if you've got a high social value like that, it makes it a lot easier for a chick to decide if you're a worthy person or not, because if 20 other girls are willing to sleep with him, then he's obviously got good qualities about him. So it makes that sort of decision of should I, shouldn't I, a lot easier.
And then there's the sort of internal competition between women as well, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and just the fact that if you've banged a couple of girls that she knows who are loosely known to her or in her circle, but you haven't picked her, well then she might, that's a source of insecurity for her. Why hasn't he picked me?
Yeah, exactly.
And then when you do put the word on her, she's like, oh no, I've heard about you. But that's actually what she wanted, because she wanted confirmation that you find her attractive as well.
Yeah, how do you get the girl you like? You bang her best friend.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to cop hate for that comment.
No. Oh well. Just hope that you're still anonymous. So
Yeah, for now.
you'll be all right. Yeah. Are you going to go mainstream? You going to put it out there sooner or later?
I will eventually. It's just I'm a director in another business, and having anti-feminist views would not go down well at all.
Right.
So I've got to be quite careful, but I might end up selling out at the end of the year. So yeah, I could go mainstream then.
Yeah. Get it up. Yeah, sell out of your partnership in White Ribbon.
Oh, fuck that.
Horrible organisation that one is. But yeah, I wonder if you saw my video out today, slightly switching topics. That apparently 71 women were murdered this year as a result of domestic violence. But apparently, when you go through the numbers, as Jasmine Newman did, it turns out that it's only slightly over half that number were actually
significantly
killed.
less.
Yeah, so it's the one woman a week you
Yeah, because
hear.
there was like a murder homicide. Yeah.
The one woman a week you hear is complete horseshit. It's actually was 38, so it's more like 3 women a month, if you like. And what was it, about one guy every 3 weeks? So, or a bit more than that actually. One guy every nearly 2 guys.
2.5.
Yeah, something like that. But it's all about the women's, stopping the violence against the women's, the poor women's.
Yeah, I've actually, as a dating coach, I've copped so much shit from women. I mean, feminist women, not normal women. Fortunately, they're usually quite supportive, but apparently my career is perpetuating rape culture. Like, are you fucking kidding me?
Of course it is. But what?
Yeah, and I'm obviously always street harassing people.
But when you make clear that, look, I'm not a pickup artist. I'm not going, this is how I'm not Roosh V. Does that make any difference? I mean, how are you perpetuating rape culture if it's not about pickups?
With the feminists, they don't care. Right. It doesn't matter. But with most people, initially they're quite curious. Very rarely do I get a negative response.
Yeah.
But once I explain how it all works, and it's effectively life coaching but for dating, people are generally very supportive of it.
Yeah, I would think so, because it's a topic that, I mean, especially amongst younger people, I mean, people generally want to be in relationships and meet someone, and then of course I think it's a great talking point, that occupation, isn't it? I mean, it must be a good conversation starter.
Yes, but it also becomes a pain in the ass because someone says, "Oh, what do you do for a living?" And I say, "I'm a dating coach." Then they're picking my brain for the next hour. So sometimes I just say I'm in consulting.
Oh yeah, I guess that's good enough. And then I guess there's girls who probably think that straight away that you're playing them in some way. They become suspicious.
I haven't actually had that from memory.
Right.
I've had a couple of people go, really? I'm like, and the second I pull out a business card, then they're like, oh, okay, yeah, fair enough. But yeah, that actually doesn't happen that often.
Do you ever get girls asking you, like if you meet a girl and they say, oh, what are you doing? Oh, I'm a dating coach. And do they ever ask you for advice on how to meet the right guy?
Yes, they do. And then I send them an invoice. No, I really don't like coaching women. I find it incredibly frustrating because often they'll ask a question, not get the answer they want, and then just ask the same question in different ways because it's more about them hearing what they want as opposed to hearing what they need.
Yeah.
But my roommate and former coach in my business, he started his own female coaching company. So he does that, and I don't know how he does it, watching some of the stuff he has to deal with. But I guess if we talk about advice for women briefly, it's more about filtering out the right men and not chasing too hard.
Right.
I think that's the biggest mistake women make. Like, they see giving up sex as a way of building attraction as opposed to being a high value woman. But yeah, I digress.
Oh no, that's interesting, isn't it? Because it used to be, of course, the other way around, right?
Yeah.
The idea. So this is this is an interesting point, actually, and whether it's off topic or not doesn't really matter. But the idea is that even though women have become, let's say, for want of a better word, more equal, they can get any job they want. They earn the same as men. I think in the UK, a study just came out that if you're a woman between the age of 20 and 40, and you haven't had kids, they earn 2% more than their male counterparts. So you've got equality essentially, but of course the cost and benefit analysis for marriage for men is not what it used to be, and so hence the hookup culture, and people don't really date. Men are sort of more aloof, not willing to get into serious relationships. Not that that's a new thing, it's just more common these days. So women have become more like men, right? They've sort of adopted this, just go out and have a bit of casual sex. But the research seems to show that women aren't actually very happy about this. At least, maybe they can do it for a couple of years in university and they're having a bit of fun, but they can't really sustain that for long periods like, say, guys can. That really doesn't make them very happy. Does that sound right?
I haven't looked into that enough, to be perfectly honest. I'd have to ask my roommate, but yeah, I'll actually write that down and I'll get back to you. I'll shoot you a message on Twitter and let you know what his opinion.
Yeah, it just seems that so. In some ways, I think it's I guess it's a bit of a traditional conservative kind of view, but forcing women, not really forcing them, but the fact that women are equal in every conceivable way, at least legally they can, they can be just as financially independent if they want to be, if they choose to be, depending on their career. That it in some ways forces women or leads them to be more like traditional men. But again, you have this problem of culture slapping up against biology, in that culture tells women to be equal and to go out and look for get a career and do all those kinds of things, but biology is telling them something else.
Yeah, I've actually noticed in a lot of my clients that they're really not attracted to girls that do sleep around a lot. Now, years and years ago, I would have put that down to just double standards, but I really do think it's just biology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a reason for that. There's a reason, a biological reason. Yeah, and it's not just, I think, a double standard necessarily. And it seems that just the way men are driven, I mean, the woman's biological imperative is to attract a mate to mate with and settle down. The man's role is really just to dump and move on.
Pump and dump.
That's it's very crude and generalized, but that's why I don't think it's biologically ingrained in women to be able to sort of move through life, like, your whole 20s and early 30s, doing that consistently, and not feel any sort of biological urge to settle down. Men can do that fairly easily, and of course men get bored and want to have relationships and they can't just sleep around all the time, but it's harder for women, especially with the biological clock ticking.
Yeah, and if you look at some studies that have been done, women over the age of 30, I think it is, they're finding it harder and harder to find someone to settle down with, because once they hit that age, men become significantly less attracted to them.
Yep. And and the other thing is, of course, that if the current trends continue and women hold their already high expectations, they're not going to find the guys that measure up. because they want. I think we may have talked about this before,
Yeah, I think we
but
did.
it's in a video I put in, which was that on every level, women have higher expectations of men, except for the one area was education, where men wanted someone as educated as they are, and so did women.
Yep.
But if women are more educated, they're not going to find those guys. And plus, the one that was the biggest difference was that men didn't really care that much if a woman had a good job.
Yeah.
But women care a great deal about that.
That was
great
was that
deal
from the
about that.
Pew Research?
Yeah, that was the Pew Research
Yeah.
poll. That was in the States. I think it was people between the age of 25 and 34.
Yep.
So it's around that sort of marriage age. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it'll get worse before it gets better. Like I
Yeah.
think there has
Yeah.
to be a tipping point at some time or another where, biology either kicks in and it all starts going back to normal, or I don't know, society will just collapse and we'll wipe ourselves out, I guess.
Oh, it could go another way, which is to say that men and women just drift apart further and further. And there's an interesting sci-fi novel about this. It's called Ice People. Pretty interesting. I may have talked about this before as well, but in the novel, men just sort of hang out together, and they have their own sex robots, and women just hang out together, and kids are pretty much raised by women, and very few people are together. It's just the way society's bifurcated.
Sounds like utopia.
Yeah, I know. Actually, doesn't sound too bad. And if you go back, well, I think part of the problem is that we've got this biology that's evolved over thousands of years, but then we have a massive cultural shift that's only happened really in the last 55, 60 years.
Yeah, definitely.
From the 50s to 60s, you get the pill, no default marriage.
Yeah,
women
Roe versus
move
Wade.
into the workforce. Yeah, women move into the workforce en masse, and yet our biology can't make that change as quickly. And so I think that's the source of a lot of problems. I mean, today, 50, 60 years ago, women and men weren't competing as much as they are today for, say, jobs, right? I mean, a woman is your competitor now.
Yeah.
Before, you weren't in competition. And none of this is to say I'm not a traditional conservative. I'm not harking back to some bygone era that was the utopia. But they're just different social pressures, and I don't think biology is keeping up with the cultural changes.
Have you seen any numbers on women's happiness since the 50s?
Yeah, I've heard it repeated many times by Milo Yiannopoulos when he gives a talk.
Yeah, because I did some digging, but I couldn't actually find any of the statistics.
I came across one once. It's not as cut and dry as that, but it does appear that women are not as happy. And there's studies. You'll hear people say like, "Oh, the most happy women are women that have kids and work part-time." And actually, the more kids they have, the happier they are.
Really?
But there's a lot more nuance to it than that. So for that to work, you actually have to have a stable marriage and a partner that earns a good income.
Yep.
Right? And so if she has that stability, then generally women are in that situation as happy as they can be. It doesn't mean they don't work at all. They might work part-time or casual, but that seems to be it. But then there are women who are career women who work their ass off and who are as equally happy.
Yeah,
There's just
definitely.
much less of them.
Yeah.
There's just much less of them. That seems to be the nuance in there, that the easier road to happiness seems to be through family, through a traditional way. Women can still get it through work. There's no doubt about that. There's just less of it. And, you've seen, you probably know better than me, in the Western media in the last 5 years or so, the multiplicity of articles about where have all the good men gone, and women complaining that they can't meet anyone. But, and, this is always pitched as the inadequacy of men, but a lot of them are unable to turn the mirror onto themselves, and it's not just examine, well, I'm no spring chicken anymore, but
Yeah.
actually, what you are and what you've done with your life doesn't necessarily make you attractive. Because as we said before, men like educated women, but they don't really care if you're a career woman. These things aren't important. Women have been told they're important by feminists. Go out there, make the most of yourself. But men don't necessarily see it that way. But women see men that way.
What's interesting is if you look at the life coaching industry, most sales come from men. So men are doing their absolute best, probably at rates higher than they've ever been, to improve themselves. And a significantly lower number of people who are, into personal development, end quote, are women. So, yeah, they're just not improving themselves and then saying, but why am I single? I mean,
and isn't that just the result of the
narcissism?
Fact that, well, isn't that just the result of the fact that, if you're a woman, I mean, what do you have to do when you go out other than make yourself look attractive? What do? You don't have to have game. Do you have to be able to chat guys up? It's for all the bullshit about equality. I mean, the man still does the vast majority of the approaching, and women. I was reading this before earlier. I forgot to bring it up. Despite all this equality bullshit, most women still expect a man to pay for a date.
You're kidding.
Yeah, that's the expectation. So it really is. Again, this is another. You have equality drummed, day in, day out. Women want to be equal and all this. But when it comes to dating, guess what? They like to be treated. Who would have thunk it?
One of my former clients went on a date. This was years ago. And he said, is it okay if we split the bill? And she said, I'm just not interested in guys who aren't willing to pay for dinner on the first date. And fortunately, I taught him strong boundaries. He turned around and said, well, I'm not interested in gold diggers. And walked out and left her with the bill. Fucking champion.
What a champion.
Yeah.
That's great. See, I would have probably thrown a 20 down or something. But, just made sure it was not quite half.
See, what I usually do on dates is I'll pay for dinner, but say the next round of drinks is on you.
Yeah. I mean, and that's another thing too. I think it's okay to want to treat a woman. Like, you don't have to feel like everything should be 50-50. I mean, if you want to take a woman out and pay for dinner, then, there's nothing wrong with that. But you can't set up the situation where she comes to expect it all the time.
Yeah.
Especially if you're not really willing to do that.
Well, what I do is I do it by proportionality. So this interior designer that I was dating a couple of years ago, she earned probably half of what I did. So I'd pay about 60% of stuff, 66% of stuff. She'd pay about 33% of it. So we just split it up that way. So she's still putting in investment, and she's, but she's not getting a free ride. Yeah.
That's basically what I did with my last girlfriend. I know I earned about double what she earned, and she would just throw down, about a third or whatever. Or, I would pay for dinner, she paid for a movie, that kind of thing. But yeah, it's interesting that I think the thing is, and women know this if they're half savvy, is that they can bleat on about equality all day, but they know they have the upper hand when it comes to dating, because men, there's a certain amount of men out there that will pay up, right?
Yeah.
If they think there's a chance, they will do it. And so women's, even though they can talk about equality, they know that they can get preferential treatment.
Yeah.
Because again, biology.
And if you've ever been to a nightclub at 5 o'clock in the morning when everyone's getting kicked out, you can have the ugliest chick who's overweight, sweaty as shit, no makeup, and there will still be guys trying to take her home.
Yep. It's the...
Man, I wish it was that easy for me, Jesus.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess maybe that's another point. That's women... It's easier for women.
Absolutely.
Women have to do less work, and as a man, you can't resent them for that. You have to just accept that.
Yes.
I mean, you can take yourself out of the game if you like, and just not play, but I mean, it's no use sort of complaining about the fact that women have it easier. That's just the way it is, isn't it? And if you're going to play the game, you have to know that.
And that's a classic comment from your typical nice guy.
Yeah.
You hear that all the time. And they also end up bitter at alpha males as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. You just can't be, can you? I mean, you figure out early in life, like I was not 6'3", I was not a model, I was not turning the heads when I walked in the room. That's you just have to live with that. There's some guy on the other side of the room, he doesn't have to do much. He just has to stand there and smile. That's life. Life isn't fair.
Yeah, you just got to play the cards you're dealt and learn how to play the game better. I mean, it would have been very, very easy for me when I was 18, 19 years old to just be like, fuck women, I hate this, the world sucks, and then never put any effort in. But if you're willing to put in the work, you can do really fucking well.
Yeah. I think it's also hard when you're young, when you just start out, say, if you're just out of uni or you're still in uni and you don't have any economic power.
Yeah.
And you see girls your age dating guys that are 25, 26, 28 because he's got a car and a nice one and a good job and he can take her out. And you don't have any of that because you don't have any economic power because you haven't quite made it yet. But you just got to, as you said, got to go back, focus on those career goals and you'll get there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. All right.
There's something else I was going to say. I can't remember what it was.
No,
it'll come back to me.
We're up to about 52 minutes as we are. We'll try to wrap it up. Let's see if we can jog your memory there. So we've covered the nice guy. Well, I guess that point that you just brought up previously, which was that a lot of the nice guys finish last kind of stereotype comes from, as you said, the nice guys themselves. That this is an easy way to blame your own lack of game and your own failures by saying, look, I'm a nice guy, but girls always seem to go for the arsehole. Now, it's not true.
That's just a victim mentality.
Yeah.
Like, at the end of the day, we're all born into different situations. So I had my dad left when I was 3. Then I had an abusive stepdad. My sister passed away when I was 11. So I was dealt a pretty shitty hand. And, as a teenager, I was really resentful of the world. I was miserable. I was depressed. I hated everything. But it's like, you just can't be the victim. If you're going to play the victim card, then you're going to live a very, very miserable life. So, go out there, do something positive, and you can live an amazing life. Get laid heaps or find a wife, have kids. It doesn't really matter what your goals are, but just go out and make some and do something positive.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad that I was brought up with the tough love, because I think that enabling of victimhood is just really poisonous
to a person's
psychology. That to me, it was, if you want something in life, you have to earn it.
Yes.
You have to go out and work for it. I remember as a kid, and I wanted an electric guitar, and my parents said, well, good luck with that. I was 14, and in New South Wales, you had to be 14 and 9 months to get a part-time job. And the day I turned 14, 9 months, I went down, I got a job, saved my first $500, and I bought this electric guitar. That's the way.
Yeah, that's good parenting.
How you get things. Yeah. But today, you just claim that you're a victim based on some identity that you have.
And then you get a quota.
That you just made up. Like this week, I'm identifying as an attack helicopter. Yeah. And maybe you can get some preferential treatment. Yeah. But I guess dating and kind of sports is another realm where all of that equality bullshit goes out of the window, because as much as, if social justice warriors are really, really intent on, social justice all across society, then why aren't they demanding that good-looking girls go out with ugly guys and vice versa.
Yeah.
I mean, this would be social justice, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it's
I
only
don't know.
applicable when it benefits them.
Yeah, yeah, of course. So when they can demonize somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pro tip,
Oh,
guys,
it's-
never date a social justice warrior, ever.
Oh God. How do you know? Other than see, because I didn't grow up with the social justice warriors, and I mean, but it's. I think it's a lot different today. And of course, social justice warriors are the young ones. At least they're
Yeah.
way out of my age range. So, what's the tip for identifying one if they don't have blue hair and they don't have a nose ring or a face piercing? What's another giveaway?
If it's face to face, them opening their mouths for about 30 seconds will be a pretty clear giveaway because they generally never shut the fuck up about it. If you're online dating or, if you're trying to hit a chick up on Instagram or something like that, they'll usually say feminist, and vegan is often a really, really big giveaway as well. I've never met a vegan who isn't a social justice warrior.
Oh, the vegans have the fervor of evangelical Christians trying to convert you.
Oh, don't
they're
they?
just some of the worst people you'll ever meet in your life. But you're saying, because I guess this is a different climate, and this interests me because young people today going to bars and things are people very, the social justice types. Do they want to get involved in conversations about equality, feminism, refugees, these kind of issues really early on in a conversation? Do they want to bring that stuff up?
To be perfectly honest, probably not. Like, I'm obviously hyperbolizing, but they will talk about that stuff, in a nightclub, at a bar, wherever, because they're passionate about it, and people talk about things that they're passionate about.
Yeah.
I think it was only this year I overheard these two girls talking about Hillary versus Trump, and I couldn't help myself. So I jumped in, and we got chatting, and very slowly I started, giving away that I was an anti-feminist, and it was so much fun to wind them up. But yeah, it really surprises me how often people do talk about politics and things like that in bars, because you really don't expect it, but it happens all the time.
Yeah.
At least in my experience.
Something I didn't. Going back, I mean, the great contests when I was young were Keating versus Hewson, Keating versus Johnny Howard.
Yeah.
These kind of. I don't remember people being particularly engaged with that. But actually, I did look at that ANU survey the other day, and it said that people are very interested in politics. They're just completely disillusioned with the mainstream parties.
Yeah.
In Australia at least. And I think that's obviously the same in the United States, is that people appear to be disengaged, but then they quietly go out and make themselves known at the ballot box. And actually, after all the early reports in the United States how there was low voter turnout, actually it was one of the highest voter turnouts. Or I think in the 20-something elections post-World War II, it ranked in the top 10, I think, in voter turnout. So
Really?
yeah, people were pretty engaged. Well,
Because I thought we had the
these
highest
kind of-
amount of people who weren't enrolled.
Oh, I was still talking about the U.S. election.
Oh,
yeah,
right, right.
In Australia, yeah, I was absolutely amazed to find out that because if people are not from Australia, we get fined here if we don't vote. That 1.4 million, which doesn't sound like a lot if you're an American, but we only have an eligible voting population of 16.4 million, so almost 10%
Yeah.
of people who were enrolled to vote didn't show up. That's pretty amazing. 9% of people didn't show up.
Now, not all of them will be fined, because when you turn 18, you actually have to fill out a form to be put onto the voting register, and it is compulsory.
that doesn't include
but you
them.
can avoid it.
Yeah, that doesn't include them.
Oh, really?
Because there's another group of 816,000, I think, of age, but have not enrolled. Yeah, and then there was 700,000 who just drew a cock on the ballot paper and voted informal. So
Donkey
when you
vote.
added them up, yeah, there was 4% of them, 5% of the ones that didn't enroll, 9% that just didn't vote even though they were enrolled, and then you had something like about 20% voted for minor parties. So when you put it all together, 37% of the electorate either didn't vote, weren't enrolled, or voted for a minor party. So that's, almost 2 in 5 people don't vote for a major party. And that's the worst I think the Liberal vote was second worst in 70 years, and the Labor vote was the same, second worst primary vote in 70 years. So the split in Australia, people are looking for alternatives, and why wouldn't they be? Our major parties suck balls.
I mean, especially in the Senate with the Nick Xenophon party, One Nation with Pauline Hanson, David Leinhelp managed to hold his seat for the Liberal Democrats.
Thankfully.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was a really, really weird election. Definitely super divided.
Yep. It's only going to get more that way.
It'll be interesting to see what happens in the Queensland state election, because that's coming up quite soon.
Yeah, I actually thought it was next year, but then someone said to me it's not until 2018. I thought it was this year.
I'm pretty sure it is.
I thought it was 2017.
Yeah, 2017.
March 2017?
Well, I don't know the exact date, but it's definitely coming up in a couple months.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think, One Nation's probably going to scoop up a bunch of seats. It's going to be really interesting.
Yeah.
So
I think
Labor, they should just...
I don't think Labor will hold it, mostly because of the lockout laws. A lot of people were really, really unhappy with that.
Yeah. Well, that's the nanny state in action.
Yeah, exactly.
Sydney's the same way. I think the biggest problem there they got rid of Campbell Newman. He was half decent. He was actually making cuts to the bloated size of the government.
Yeah, he was a very, very good Lord Mayor as well, because he was Lord Mayor before he was the thingy. My mind just went blank.
Premier, yeah.
Premier, yes. Sorry.
Yep. Yeah, but Queensland has a long history of shitty premiers, like old Joby Octopeterson, and who was that other dickhead? Beattie. Was it Beattie?
Peter Beattie.
He was he talked a lot, but he actually didn't. He didn't do anything.
Bligh.
He was just a blowhard. Anna Bligh, awful.
She was a fuckwit.
And this woman at the moment, she's a bit of a fuckwit too, isn't she?
Yeah, no one even knew who she was before the election.
Yeah, there's just a complete disenchantment with politics, and I'm hoping, as I put in a video the other day, that Corey Bernardi might start something, but I don't know if he's too late, because Hanson's already got a firm grip on the sort of the protest vote and the disillusion vote, and I don't know if he would be, all he'd end up doing is dividing the Liberal Party and handing an election to Labor, which would be awful.
I mean, they're already divided internally.
Yeah, that's true. It's just Turnbull just doesn't stand for anything. He's just a weak leader and out of touch.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think
he's just he's being the classic nice guy. He's just trying to impress everyone.
That's the way to bring it back around to the topic, isn't it? He is a classic nice guy. He's a populist. He was under this silly idea that he could be nice to people on the left because, hey, I believe in global warming, I'm for gay marriage, and he was going to win all these sort of centre-left people over. And he didn't. They said, fuck you, doesn't matter. Because at the end of the day, they think... It's funny how the left portrays the Liberal Party, that, he's just beholden to the conservative wing. Really? I mean, the Liberal Party of today is I keep saying this, the Liberal Party today is barely any further right of, say, where Keating was in the 90s. That's how far the politics has swung to the left.
Actually, to bring it back to dating, I've noticed most male feminists are these classic nice guys. Like, they're only feminists because they want a virtue signal to, as a way of peacocking, effectively.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it just doesn't work.
I mean, how many alphas, like, take some guy who's, a good athlete, for example, good, and he's not an idiot. He's not a complete meathead. I mean, why would he be a feminist? He doesn't need to be.
Yeah, exactly.
There's nothing in it for him. How does it up his sexual marketplace value? It doesn't. He's already up. I mean, look at that whole group of. I'm not really that familiar with these sort of little tiffs that Bering has with
Michael Rowland.
What's her name?
Christy
yeah,
Winters.
Roland and Christy Winters and that whole group. I mean, look at those guys. They are so atypical
They're pussies.
of beta.
Yeah.
And they're disingenuous. I don't believe Michael Rowland. I don't believe the things that he actually believes the things that he says.
Yeah.
It just seems to me to be one gigantic virtue signal.
Yeah, and just everything that comes out of his mouth is just, please like me. Unless it's against Bering fans, in which case he's censorship.
Yeah. And he does that, I'm kind of a sensitive new age guy and I'm in touch with myself and all this kind of, it's just like, dude, been there, done that, got the t-shirt. It's not a winning formula long term.
See, male feminists are sort of like, the new hippies in a sense.
Yeah. I think hopefully it's just a trend.
Yeah, I hope so.
Because I don't know. I don't really know how that can be satisfying to be a man. I mean,
well, it's not.
I guess, yeah.
I mean, when you're not. Now, I will have to. I'll just say this quickly. Masculinity and femininity is a spectrum, right? Not gender. Don't worry, I'm not going down that path. You can have guys who are super masculine and guys who are quite feminine, and you'll generally, wherever you stand on that scale, you'll attract the polar opposite. But generally speaking, if you're a guy and you're acting in feminine ways, you're not taking charge of your own life, you're not doing manly stuff, men tend to drop into depression really, really quickly. And the same happens for women acting like men.
Yeah. Well, I guess that explains some of the unhappiness that we read about. I might have to try and dig out an article on that because I've heard it repeated many times. Milo says it, but then Milo can get a little bit fast and loose with the truth sometimes as well. You don't know whether he's trolling, but I mean, he's generally in the ballpark when it comes to stuff like that.
Shapiro's quite good with his stats because, it's always verifiable on the Daily Wire.
Well, I guess that was another aspect is that you bring up before that there's men and women on a spectrum is that the stuff that I've read is that if you're a confident, assertive man, being with a confident, assertive woman is not the best fit. You actually...
No, fuck no.
The old opposites do attract
yes.
is true to some extent. And so, but here's the problem though. If you're not the assertive, confident male, then are you destined to end up with a woman who manipulates you? Because it seems to me it's going to be hard for you to escape your fate as one of those.
Not really, because you can have an assertive, confident woman who isn't manipulative. It really just depends on whether she's dealt with her issues or not. If you're one of those guys who are quite passive, quite submissive, 90% chance you're going to end up with a girl who's confident and assertive. As long as she's not a fucking psycho, then it can work fine.
So that's the tip there. If you're more of a passive guy, avoid the psychos.
If you're any guy, avoid psychos.
Although
I must admit, the psychos are usually better in bed.
Yeah, and the psychos don't let you know they're psychos straight off the bat. It's not like they've got a sign over their head saying, I'm a psycho. Yeah. They don't hang those signs out.
You can see red flags quite early on. If she's being quite flaky, that can be a sign. If she's being too clingy and wanting to hang out 7 nights a week, 5 minutes after you've met her, that's a bad sign. Calling you 50 times a day, start running.
Crying over
trivial shit.
I ended up in a relationship that lasted a year, but I saw a red flag in the first couple of months, and I just waved it away because that's what you do. Everything's going fine. I'm going to overlook that. She cried one night. What happened? I said, let's go out to dinner, and I wanted to go to a hotel restaurant. Heard it was really good.
Yep.
She goes, no, I have to dress up. I don't want to get all dressed up. And that should have been a warning sign right there because she was someone who had to take 2.5 hours to get ready. But And I said, oh, well, what do you want to go get Spanish instead? Because we had talked about this Spanish restaurant. And she's like, oh, okay, yeah. And then, so she comes around to my place, and I don't know, why did she do that? Was she maybe she was driving, I'm not sure. And she was all dressed up. And I said, I thought we weren't going to the hotel. I thought you didn't want to get dressed up. Oh, well, I got dressed up. And I said, oh. And we went to the hotel, and the hotel was booked out. And then we parked. I said, well, we'll just go to the Spanish restaurant. No big deal. And we had to walk, I don't know, 400 or 500 meters. And she had the high heels on, right? And her feet started hurting. And I wasn't being particularly considerate of that. Like, my feet hurt. And,
take your heels off.
I come from the tough love. I was like, yeah, well, it's a couple of fucking blocks. Shut the fuck up. Now, I didn't say that, but that's what I was thinking. And then we got to the restaurant, and she was all in a huff. And it's like, I'm like, she was expecting an apology. And I was like, what do you mean? I mean, I thought we decided that you weren't going to get dressed up. We're going to the Spanish restaurant, but you came here and you're all dressed up. So she just burst into tears. She did that typical woman thing where she was crushed by the logic. She knew she couldn't get out of it. She fucked up. And she started to cry, and then she said, oh, are you angry? And I said, I'm not angry at you, but I said I wasn't angry at all because I don't really mind where we eat, but I'm angry now that you're crying.
Yeah. And
then, so this was early on. This was like
should have had stronger boundaries, Indy.
Yeah, well, you know what I did? I went home, and she went home, she dropped me off, and she went home, and I didn't call her. That was it. I thought, she doesn't call me, I'm not calling her, it's done. And she called me and said, oh, I'm sorry, blah, blah, blah. And I said, yeah, okay, don't worry about it. We'll meet. But I should have actually just went and had the foresight to go, nah, that was a big enough sign right there.
The worst one that I ever had was a chick. This was right at the, when I first started coaching. I was hooking up just casually with this girl for ages and ages. And there are plenty of red flags there, but the sex was fantastic. So I kind of turned a blind eye to it. And there was one night I took a chick home from a nightclub. And then the next morning she said, oh, did you have fun? Or did you take anyone home last night? So it was something along those lines. And I was like, what the fuck? How did, and I just denied it. It's like, nope, nothing. And a couple of weeks later, I was at another girl's house, and then she said, oh, are you having fun with person X? And at this point, I was like, what the fuck is going on?
She's following you.
Yeah, but, I hadn't seen her anywhere. It wasn't obvious. And how she knew these people's names as well was beyond me. So I went to the police, had to get an ATO out on her. And I found out that 12 months prior, I was absolutely wasted and gave her my Facebook password to log in for me to check it for a message. For 12 months, she knew everything that I was doing. Absolute psycho. So yeah, gave her the flick pretty quickly after that.
Jesus. Well, there's another tip, boys. Don't give anyone your Facebook password.
Yeah.
Fuck that.
And no matter how good the sex is, if they're psycho, just avoid it.
Yeah, there's always...
Because 100% of the time comes back to bite you on the ass. Yep.
Been there and learned that one. But then again, if these young guys... sometimes they're just going to have to make these mistakes to learn them, aren't they? They can't avoid all the mistakes.
I mean, I've definitely learned a lot from making mistakes, and there's plenty of mistakes I'm actually glad I made.
Yeah.
That one in particular.
Getting someone up the duff is one I haven't made, thankfully. I don't want to learn from that one. Getting someone up the duff that wasn't intentional.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we've done 1:15, so we might cut it there before people get bored and log out.
If they haven't already.
If they haven't already, yeah. We went a bit off the rails there, but I think we covered the nice guy ground as best we could. And, do you just want to give your own channel a shout out there?
Yep, so my channel is 8-Bit Thoughts. It has a whole bunch of anti-feminist stuff because I just can't fucking stand them. And I try to do videos where I delve into a bit of statistics, a bit like indie. So if you like the stuff, head over, hit that subscribe button, and smash that like button as well.
Smash it. Smash the shit out of it.
What
yeah.
a fuckhead that guy is in that video.
Oh, yeah. What a tool. What an absolute tool. Just while you're on that subject, if people are interested in finding more about this, because I'm obviously interested because I do this, but watch Thunderfoot's videos about liking videos. Apparently it does make a difference. So I've told my fans to hit the like button. Then I told them... oh, don't worry about it. And apparently it does matter, so I don't fucking know anymore.
I don't think anyone knows. I don't even know if YouTube knows.
No, fuck. Yeah, who knows? All right, mate. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, no worries, bro.
And we'll catch you next time.
Beautiful.